Hey everybody, this is Nick. Before we dive into this episode, do us a big favor and click subscribe in your podcast player or on YouTube. By doing so, you will be alerted every time we post a new episode, and if you feel so inspired, you could also thumbs up or comment to get us more engagement. I also want to remind everybody that the fair is back June 24th to the 26th at the MREA campus in Custer, Wisconsin. We have a beautiful campus. There'll be thousands of the nicest people that you would ever hope to meet here, and we promise the weather will be beautiful. For more information or to buy tickets, go to theenergyfair.org. That's theenergyfair.org. We hope to see you there.
This episode of the Rise Up podcast features Peter Murphy, the MREA's Grow Solar Program Director and new Associate Director of the MREA. Nick spoke with Peter about the development and growth of the Grow Solar Group Buy program, the strength of collective buying power in solar-curious communities, and methods to improve access to the benefits of solar. But first, we would like to thank a few of our featured Energy Fair and Grow Solar partners. The Clean Energy Credit Union, promoting clean energy, environmental stewardship, and cooperative enterprises through financial services, cleanenergycu.org. Northwind Solar, Central Wisconsin's premier solar installer, northwindre.com. Eagle Point Solar, leading the way in solar installations in Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin, eaglepointsolar.org. And Arc Electric, leaders in the solar industry, paving the way for renewables in Wisconsin, arcelec.com. You can learn more about Grow Solar opportunities and the benefits of solar by attending the 31st Annual Energy Fair, June 24th through the 26th, 2022 in Custer, Wisconsin. Tickets on sale now at theenergyfair.org/tickets.
Peter Murphy, welcome to the Rise Up podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well. Thank you. How are you today, Nick?
I'm not that good, but now that we're talking, it's getting better. It's getting better and better. Can we start with a rapid fire series of questions?
Yeah, I don't really have a choice.
You don't.
Let's do it.
You could answer them slowly, and then it'll slow down the rapidity.
Oh, right. I love stalling.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
When did MREA start offering solar group buy programs?
First one, to my knowledge, was in 2013 in Milwaukee.
And how many have we done so far?
52.
How many individuals have attended public power hour presentations?
That's a good question. 11,700 on the dot.
11,700. How many of those people have moved forward with solar installation?
2,375.
How many total kilowatts does that represent?
17,452.
What is the total economic investment represented by those installed kilowatts?
$53,166,018.
And how much carbon dioxide are those systems currently offsetting?
Ooh, that's a good question. I might not have that one.
We have reached the end of your...
No, I could make an educated guess real quick. Per year, it's around. We're talking like, oh shoot, I've got to put it into EPA carbon equivalencies calculator. I'll do that real quick. As a general, like, real easy and I think pretty conservative rule of thumb, I generally use around 1,200 kilowatt hours per kilowatt per year. I think in general, most kilowatts through our programs are slated to produce higher than that. So that's a conservative estimate. Let's see, 19,973,000 pounds of carbon dioxide equivalent per year.
Yeah, that's a lot. If you think about it, if you feel the carbon dioxide in the air, go ahead. You can feel it.
Oh yeah, it's in there. It's doing it. The parts per million. There's more and more parts per million of it every day.
Well, that's some pretty interesting statistics. Now let's stop quantifying and let's start qualifying a little bit. So customers, potential customers, people, interested people that come to a power hour, whether it be online or in person at a library, a coffee shop, or a brewery, or what have you, in over the last years, what do you think is driving their interest? What major questions do they have?
Well, it's been changing over time. I think primarily for the first several years, it was environmental motivations that got them to the presentation. And then what generally I think seals the deal for them is finding out the financials are not, the financials are realistic and worthy of their investment. In other words, a lot of times we'll see a simple payback of maybe 11 or 12 years is like that's kind of the threshold, the going rule of thumb, or the kind of common knowledge around, from what I'm hearing from solar installers, is that like the threshold for a conversion for a lot of people is around 11 years for simple payback. And that's something that people can tolerate. They feel like they'll be in their house for that long, or the resale value will be increased enough that it's a justifiable investment for them. However, there have been people who don't care about simple payback at all and are just like, I want to go solar. We're trying to decarbonize our home. We're doing all this stuff. And there's plenty of those people around. So I think it's, long story short, I think environmental motivations get people to the presentation, get people to sign up for the program. They want to learn more about solar in general. And then we just try to make it as accessible as possible. And we really try to right size their expectations so the trust goes a long way, I think. Being that neutral third party, helping people set their expectations appropriately and not over-promising what solar can and will do for their homes, I think really goes a long way.
Yeah, so the formula for a group purchase program has pretty much persisted since the first one with some modifications. You want to talk a bit about what the program is and why it still works?
Yeah, I mean, so we started these back in Milwaukee, or back in 2013 in Milwaukee. I was a community organizer, and Amy Hart, who is now the, I think, senior policy director at Sunrun, she was working for the city of Milwaukee, and she was doing free public presentations about an incentive that the city of Milwaukee was offering to residents who went solar at the time. And I was the events coordinator at a bar. And she was like, hey, can we do this presentation? And I went, sure. And a bunch of people showed up, and they, in response to this, the prospect of going solar, because it was pretty new and pretty exotic that the city would be supporting it in such a way with like I think it was a direct rebate. So she gave this presentation. All these people were like, we should start our own utility. It should be solar powered. And Amy said, well, we can't do that, but we could do this thing called a Solarize program. Which originated, I think, in Portland in 2009. And with the help of National Renewable Energy Labs, they put out this Solarize guidebook, which is basically like the Bible of these type of programs. Other organizations have done them as well and continue to do them around the country. It's really like a tried and true model, but basically get a bunch of people together, educate them about solar. The more people who go solar at the same time with the competitively selected solar installer, the lower the price is for everyone. So it really it computes. There's a competitively selected installer. They're offering prices that are lower than what they would offer on the open market, i.e. outside of the program. And then once we reach certain benchmarks or milestones of kilowatt capacity, usually in our programs 50, 150, 250, 350 kilowatts, there's a price break that applies to everyone. And that different installers do it differently. Sometimes it is simply a discount. Other times it comes in the form of a rebate at the program's end. But it works.
Yeah, one of the things I think maybe that separates the approach that you and the MREA take to the group purchase programs is really the focus on developing local partnerships. So since 2011, I've worked in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, Highland Park, Michigan, Central Wisconsin, a number of counties there, Cook County, Chicago, Sauk County, Wisconsin, Lynn County, Iowa, Jackson County, a bunch of different programs. And in those programs, the first step is really to partner with the local municipality, county, a tech college, extension agency, a group that's active in the space. You talk about the role of the community partners and kind of what they do as part of the program.
Yeah. Yeah, these partnerships are really critical. They're like the main indicator of success or failure for a program, or I guess like the degree of success, because failures are very, very few and far in between. Yeah, we generally initiate a program when a unit of government somebody, an elected or a staff person, will reach out to us and say, hey, we want to do one of these programs. How do we get started? And so, for the most part, for these programs, we've been reactive to that. But a motivated unit of government can their ability to bring both credibility and legitimacy to a program, to reach their residents, because there's nobody better at reaching their residents than they are in general. Those elements go such a long way. And when we've had county partners who have been particularly good at working with their local municipalities, and the feedback that we've gotten has been that by doing these programs where we're involving multiple different units of government at the county level, municipal level, or multiple counties or municipalities across counties, it leads to other synergies or other opportunities for teamwork in those realms as well. So that's a pretty cool intangible outcome from my perspective. I mean, for example, we've done programs. We started in 2017 to do a program in Lynn County, Iowa. The following year, we did a program in Johnson County, Iowa, they share a border. And then we kind of alternated a couple of years. And then this past year in 2021, we did a program where the two counties worked together along with a bunch of their municipalities. And it was really successful. And it's pretty cool. I think the feedback that we got was that they really enjoyed working together, and it opened up some doors for them to work together in the future.
Yeah, one benefit to the county is it's a low cost, low effort way to provide a lot of education to local homes and businesses that are interested in solar. And so I can see from their perspective also why they participate. But in many instances, they also are part of a local group that picks the installer. So
Yep.
I think that's another interesting part of the MRE's program, is that we organize local folks and organize the procurement of the contractor and get all the bids and provide a rubric, but it's really the local representatives that end up selecting the contractor that's going to serve the program. You've helped, how many did you say? 50 some? 50
Yeah.
of these groups. What have you noticed are their real concerns when they're looking to select an installer?
That's a good question. I mean, I think at municipal levels and county levels, a lot of times they're used to doing procurement processes that are guided by lowest bid, and it's pretty cut and dry, like lowest price. That's my understanding anyway. I could be wrong about that. In many instances, the lowest price proposal does not get picked. And this is because there's a lot to be said. I mean, it's an investment that goes on your roof for 25 plus years. The warranty life is 25 years, so you want to get quality. So a lot of the time in evaluating proposals against each other, advisory committees will lean toward the installer that has demonstrated work quality, high quality business practices, a history of quality installations, the level of credentials, the number of people on staff who have NABCEP credentials or master electrician status or that type of thing, over price. And that's not to say that price does not matter, because it certainly does. It always factors in. But it's been interesting to see advisory committees have that internal conversation where they're weighing the value of a difference in price against what is perceived to be, maybe they're right or maybe they're not, difference in quality of the installer.
Yeah, and I imagine the locality too. Most of the jurisdictions, one of the major motivations of local units of government is economic development and employment. So there must be a motivation for them to pick local contractors. My guess is that's looking at the numbers from the group buy programs. That seems to be the case, that they favor the local installer. Has that been kind of your experience?
Yeah, to varying degrees. I mean, we always have a meeting with the advisory committees where we go over the request for proposals ahead of time, and they have ample opportunity to offer additional points to local firms, or at the very least, they pretty much always offer additional points to companies that are based within the same state. And then proximity kind of varies. So like they might have, we've had stuff that says additional points awarded to firms that are located within 100 miles of City Hall, that type of thing. So it's systematized in the evaluation process. And I think, yeah, I mean, there is certainly a preference for local investment. I mean, we talked earlier in that rapid fire section about the $53 million of total investment over all of these programs to date. And I think, yeah, the vast majority of that has been into local companies.
Well, the company selection that's consumer protection, right? Getting the best bid, getting people involved in looking at the bid, bringing transparency among the competing bids, negotiating with the contractor, making sure that the terms are favorable from the customer. But I think the other part that I really have been impressed by with the group buy programs is the role of kind of the customer education in consumer protection, because when you go in or someone that works for the MREA or a partner goes in to give the presentation, they're talking about how solar works and how to estimate if it's right for you and answering questions about the suitability of their site for solar and their utility bill and what's in the proposal. And that really seems to help the potential customer, figure out if it is right for them. So in that context, like in the Power Hour, what are some of the particulars that you think are really important aspects of education for people who are interested in going solar?
Yeah, that's a good question. In people's news feeds on social media, they'll get ads that make claims about the availability of incentives that may or may not really exist, or financing that may seem really attractive on its face, $0 down. There's certainly the potential that that's a good deal at the end of the day. I don't think I can categorically say that it's not, but I think there's enough messaging that's either misleading or false that's sort of happening in people's faces and all these on our devices and our platforms that are vying for our attention. And so when we are giving a presentation, we try to be as upfront as possible with folks about what the costs will be and what that means in terms of simple payback. And simple payback is, of course, it's going to vary. And the biggest takeaway from our presentation, I hope, is that everybody's system is going to be different. Everybody's site is different. And so if you have a suitable site, if you have a south-facing roof with good solar access, little to no shade, or even east and west facing roof with no shade, like it doesn't hurt to get a site assessment and a cost estimate, and then for your own case, right? So I think that's really helpful to folks. The basics of solar, I think, is helpful. Depending on the utility territory, we will get into more detail or less about policies like net metering and how that looks. We've had programs. If the geographical territory is a county, and frequently, and the more rural you get, the more utility territories there are. But there's frequently 2 or more utility territories that have differing net metering policies. And so we have to talk about the differences. And I think that helps open people's eyes to the policy implications of their utilities, maybe their elected officials as well, and their leanings and their relationships with utilities. I'm not sure about that. But like we have gotten in surveys, we've gotten feedback that folks are more likely to pay attention to energy policy after having attended one of our presentations.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the engagement aspect brings to me top of mind why we do it. Mm-hmm. Why are we doing these programs as a mission-based organization that really is working towards a just energy transition that provides benefits to all and cleans the electricity system, makes it more accessible, transparent, beneficial, local, clean? What's the point here? And so I kind of want to start changing a little bit and talk about maybe like solar energy diffusion studies, like the way that people adopt solar, because what we say with the programs is proximity and affinity drive consumer adoption. If your neighbor gets a solar electric system, you're more likely to get one. And if you are friends or in a church or go to work with somebody, if you're affiliated, they get a solar system. And so one of the things that I find interesting with the Group Buy program is that what that really means is that happy solar customers make more solar customers. And so how would you say that the kind of program and the power hours help to ensure that people are getting what they expect from their solar energy investment? Meaning, how are we helping make happy solar customers?
Yeah, I mean, the education up front, giving people like a clear-eyed picture of what to actually expect. I mean, they come in with preconceived notions about, I'm going to go solar and I'm going to have storage and I'm going to cut ties with my utility. We are clear that is not going to happen, most likely. It could in some cases, but in the vast majority, 99+%, that's not the case. And so I think solar customers are happy when their results are close to or exactly the same as what was predicted on their proposal. And I think they can pretty much determine that after a year. They're gonna be able to look at their proposal and look at their actual bill reduction and energy production on their dashboard if they're using it or whatnot, and say, okay, yeah, this was within 3% of what was expected. Primarily, I would say the competitive installer selection leads to that. It's getting a high quality installer at a price that folks find to be fair tends to lead to good outcomes. There are bad actors in the industry, and these programs, I think, help folks rest assured that they are protected against that. We specify certain contract terms and whatnot ahead of time. It's generally no more than 20% down, whereas in the general solar industry, it's closer, I think, to 50% down on contract signing, with lots of exceptions, but that's pretty common. And then if the installation is not done in a timely manner, we bake in production credit from the installer so that the customers in their discrete contracts with the installer, they have certain legal footing to pursue damages if there's issues. I don't know of cases where we have needed to employ those. And that's a testament to the solidity of having an advisory committee vetting installers, evaluating them against a rubric and whatnot.
Yeah, it's also quite a public program for the contractor, so there's a bit of peer pressure, and the eyes are on the program. You did say one interesting thing there that I think maybe a lot of people don't quite get, is that the expectations, at least from the solar energy production that are given to your system, are easy for a person to measure because they're measured in real time on an available dashboard that you can have on your cell phone, and you can see the last minute, the last day, the last week, the whole lifetime. And so if the system isn't performing as sold, as it was originally pitched, then the customer, it doesn't take long to figure that out. That being said, we are a 50-state experiment in energy policy, and in those states, the different utility territories all have their say of how these things go. So you've worked in 7 different states on these programs and many utility territories. What are some of the state and utility policies that really help a solar electric system on a home or business make a lot of financial sense?
Yeah, let me begin by saying I do not pretend to be a utility policy expert on any level at all, nor do I pretend to be a policy or incentive expert. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt, please. I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. I'll start with a kind of easy one, and it's easy to make it a little bit of a punching bag maybe, but in Iowa, they had a state tax credit that was 50% of the federal tax credit, and it was basically like coupled with the federal tax credit, right? So when federal tax credit was 30% for several years, and the Iowa tax credit was 15%. It sweetens the deal for anybody who's interested in going solar. That then stepped down to 26%. That was 13%, right, for Iowa then. But then at the end of 2020, right, when the COVID-19 rescue package was passed, the federal investment tax credit was changed. The Iowa tax credit was still coupled with the old legislation, the old policy. And so I guess last year was an issue where it was unclear for a long time It then went unfunded, I believe. There was a waiting list, and the Department of Commerce had like some information on their website that led folks to believe that this waiting list would be accommodated. And now it's gone, and I believe the waiting list basically just went away. There's now a legislative push for the state of Iowa to make good on its commitments, because these policies, like 15% back from the state on the cost of your array, they can be deciding factors for folks, right? And this kind of goes back to like the conversation about legitimacy. Like when we partner with a municipality or a county, they bring a lot of credibility and legitimacy because people in general believe, say what you will about people's attitudes towards government, but like in terms of this is something that's going to be there for a long time, they make good on their commitments. I think that's an expectation. And then when the state wipes out a waiting list that people made a pretty significant financial decision for their household with the understanding that it would come to fruition, it's not the best look. Maybe I shouldn't be so mean to Iowa. I mean,
positives, and you give
yeah,
me the challenges. This is a result
okay.
of working in so many utility territories, isn't it?
I guess so. Like, I mean, we see like the really cool stuff like FIJA, the Future Energy Jobs Act in Illinois, which funded the SREC market there. And folks were getting the federal investment tax credit it was 30% at the time. And it was an additional, could be 35% off their system as a result of this incentive. It was paid up front for 15 years worth of energy production from your solar array. And there was to contractually manifest that, there was some stuff that folks found disagreeable in the contracts that they had to sign in order to get the SRECs. It's getting in the weeds a little bit, but it led to a ton of solar activity in Illinois leading up to 2021. And then the funding ran out in 2021. And prior to that, all of these solar companies had descended on Illinois. There was a ton of market activity. Talking to partners there, I just asked them kind of anecdotally, like, what if you're scrolling through Facebook, are you getting a lot of solar ads? And they'd be like, yeah, we're getting just inundated with solar messaging from all these companies that we've never even heard of. So it leads to all this market activity. In 2021, the SRECs went unfunded until CEJA was passed, which is a sort of like corollary, I guess, to FIJA. So it's now funded, but there was this year of hardship, I guess. 2020 happened. We did fewer programs. We kind of like pivoted to offering our presentations digitally instead of in person, as everyone did, of course. But that meant we had lower capacity. And so our overall year did not perform as well as we had hoped, of course. But in 2021, our thought was that there was a lot of pent up demand and things would really improve and take off again. But then without the value of those SRECs for folks in Illinois, and with the potential for that funding to come back in future policy, folks, I think, largely just kind of sat. They sat out on participation and on purchasing solar. You can find, I see in all these energy digests and stuff that we get on a daily or weekly basis. Sounds like 2021 was still a really good year for solar deployment across the Midwest and across the country. But in terms of our programs in Illinois specifically, it was like, it was a lot tougher, I would say. And now that CEJA has funded these SRECs again, we'll see what happens here in 2022. I'm hoping everything bounces back. I guess like extremely long answer or long story short is like, yeah, these incentives make a huge difference. And we'll see simple payback anywhere from, I don't know, probably in the soonest residential simple payback, I'm guessing around the Midwest is probably like between 6 and 8 years. And then the longest is like 18 to 20, I'm guessing, depending on the utility territory.
Yeah, there's the core policies that underwrite, right? Like net metering, having net metering, being able to be credited at the retail rate, even if it's up to your annual production. Well, then they fiddle with that too, up to your monthly consumption. Good interconnection, good expedited interconnection at a reasonable cost for the system in the utility territory. Third-party financing, access to good financing. Then there's the solar coaster, as they call it, right? One of the tragedies you talked about in the solar coaster is waiting for the next incentive. When the incentive goes away, it's not like it's probably not a good deal. It's just like, oh, but I hear they're coming back, so I'm going to wait. So that is the kind of fits and starts in the market where you're at the whims of like the state and utility policies, which can be kind of a headache. but one that we've been accustomed to riding.
Yes. I mean, people do that with even the technology, right? I'll get an email, I don't know, quarterly from somebody saying, should I actually do this right now? Or is the technology advancing such that I should wait a couple more years for solar modules to be that much more efficient or something like that? And I don't remember which solar installer representative likened this to like cell phones or computers. Like if you waited on buying a computer since 1994 or something like that to get the best one, it's just like you'd never get it because they're advancing at a pretty rapid clip. So like the sooner you get involved, the sooner you can start lowering your own bill.
That makes me think of an interesting phenomenon that's happening, which is that, and as you're aware, because we very specifically track the installed cost per watt, and we track that in our programs and follow that very closely by state and nationally, is that installed prices have consistently come down and dramatically come down for solar, making them much more affordable and accessible and like contributing to this boom in solar adoption. However, which contributes in some ways to that, oh, should I wait till they get more affordable or more efficient or what have you? But we find ourselves in an interesting market context where it doesn't seem like things will get cheaper moving forward, and mostly because of supply chain issues. So what are you hearing out there with your ear to the ground?
Yeah, that's like a really tough one. So we've in just looking at the trends across years, we've seen the price of solar across all of our programs year over year come down from 2013 through 2019 was the lowest year, I believe. And then in 2020, prices overall rose. That could be its own thing that we can discuss. I think an important caveat is that we haven't done the best job of parsing out which and how many, what proportion, and to what extent storage is factoring into that rise in price. So that's something we need to do, and we could do it, and we probably will. I've done it for a couple of programs, and there can be like a 40 to 60 cent per watt swing in like a program aggregate average for the cost per watt. But I think completely irrespective of that caveat, the price is going to go up, and it's gone up in the last year. I think it's safe to say that across the board because we haven't done that much storage. I mean, people are interested in storage, but it's the same technology question. Should I wait on storage? And a lot of the messaging, like some people are doing it, obviously, but a lot of the messaging that they're getting too is that like pricing for storage is going to come down precipitously over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, the contractors they're all dealing with that, trying to figure out their supply chains. There's just basically a global supply chain crunch. There's not a lot of domestically made modules, so we are curious to see what happens this year. But I do want to talk about the contractors. I think one of the things that has impressed me, and I know has impressed you, is how amazing these businesses are. They're so talented, that not only on the sales side and their approachability, but just the way that they manage the market and serve customers and the quality of their systems. And the cool thing about the solar market, it's so many small companies. It's all these like mom and pop shops, local shops, electrical shops that have added solar, people that do exclusively solar. There's so many amazingly good people in the industry, and just that the experience of working with such good companies is something that really gives us hope. I wanted to plug, you're working to basically feature and get some of these companies to the Energy Fair and feature them more broadly as Grow Solar partners. Are we going to be able to connect with companies at the fair? Are they exhibiting, giving presentations? What's happening?
Yeah, we're gonna put together. We haven't launched this yet, so I don't know if it's too soon to talk about that. But we're talking about having some additional perks for Grow Solar selected installers specifically who have worked with us in 2020, 2021, and basically like make them more visible to Energy Fair attendees. So basically as like recognition for all their hard work, as well as the quality kind of baked into the fact of being selected by a local advisory committee.
Well, Peter, there's more programs on the horizon. Where do people go to get more information about Grow Solar?
Yeah, go to growsolar.org. And specifically, if you're listening to this and you want to bring a Grow Solar program to your community, click the Get Involved button. And there's some more information on how you can get involved if there's a program happening in your community. And there's also the steps to take to request a program in your community if we don't already have one there. So we've been mostly reactive, like I said, to municipalities and counties requesting that we come and offer a program. We'd love to fill the queue for the rest of 2022 and 2023 and beyond. So we're actively seeking out new communities. We'd love to work in some new markets in the coming years. Great.
Well, thanks. I'm looking forward to that also. Peter, have a good day. Hope you're still doing extremely well.
Yes, just sweating a little bit more. Thanks.
All
Have
right.
a great one. Shine on, as we say.
Hey, Energy Fair friends. Kyle here, Development Coordinator at the MREA. If you were inspired by or interested in what you heard during Peter's interview today, we wanted to let you know that you have a few opportunities to not only learn more, but also connect with some of the MREA's Grow Solar staff and installers during the 2022 Energy Fair. Just like during the participant education we provide during our Grow Solar group buy programs, we will also be hosting solar power hours within our general education workshops at the programming at the fair this year. Peter and the other Grow Solar staff will also be talking about the group buys available in central Wisconsin and across the Midwest. They will also be talking about how you can get involved and bring group buys to your own communities. And the information doesn't stop there. We'll be having more workshops at the fair and are thrilled to highlight a few of them for you. These will include a panel hosted by the MREA's very own Nick Hylla, our Executive Director, and he'll be alongside the Executive Director of Renew Wisconsin, Heather Allen, John Delury of Vote Solar, and the 2022 Energy Fair keynote, John Farrell of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. It's going to be a great lineup and you won't want to miss it. A few other workshops of note include Energy Policy and Politics in Wisconsin with Jim Bullion, Director of Government Affairs at Renew Wisconsin, How to Get Solar Started in Your School District for those interested in bringing solar beyond the homestead with Teresa Radermacher, Co-Chair and Project Coordinator of the Monona Grove School District Sustainability Committee, and the mini levels of Solar Plus Storage, an extended workshop we're offering with Christopher LaForge of Great Northern Solar. Extended workshop tickets are now available where you purchase your Energy Fair tickets at theenergyfair.org/tickets. And don't forget, the mini Grow Solar installers will be attending the fair as well. There's no better place or time to connect with these installers if solar is on your mind. These installers are competitively selected by the stakeholders of each Grow Solar program, so you know they're some of the best in the Midwest. We see these installers returning to visit us in Custer each June because the Energy Fair is the perfect opportunity for them to keep their workforces trained on the most up-to-date practices and technologies in the industry with our Energy Pro Continuing Education series. And they also come to engage with you, the like-minded, sustainably focused faces behind the powering of the just energy transition. Don't miss out on this chance to connect, learn, and level up your solar knowledge. All of the Energy Fair exhibitors will be ready to greet you and answer all of your questions in the rolling hills of Custer this summer, June 24th through the 26th, and we can't wait to see you there.
Thanks again for joining us today. Make sure you subscribe, leave us a review, and for more info on the Energy Fair, go to theenergyfair.org. That's theenergyfair.org, and we will see you there.